Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday afternoon work session. Agenda today, right off the bat, Southwest Washington Regional Airport. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon. Let me go ahead and just jump right in.
Sure.
Okay.
After you introduce yourself.
After I introduce myself, sorry. Yes, I am Chris Pellini, the Southwest Washington Regional Airport Manager. And I'm here this afternoon to talk to you about two different items, the interlocal agreement, as well as the 2024 operating budget. We can go ahead and start with the interlocal agreement if you'd like. As many of you know, the airport operates under an interlocal agreement between four government entities: City of Kelso, City of Longview, Port of Longview, and the county, of course. And that 5-year agreement is expiring at the end of this year on December 31st. And so we've been working, our airport attorneys and working with the four entity legal counsels on a new interlocal agreement that would start January 1st of 2024 and go 5 years until December 31st of 2028. And all four legal counsels have signed off on the interlocal agreement that you have in your packets today. And so that's being presented to you today for adoption. The City of Kelso adopted it yesterday, and the Port of Longview adopted it last week. And so the only changes to this document from the current interlocal agreement that's currently in effect is that we've added some clarifying language at the request of all four entities to just clarify that that this document, this operating interlocal agreement, is a standalone document separate from the fuel tank interlocal agreement that was adopted earlier this year. So you'll see that there is some language on page 6 at the bottom of the page underneath where the interlocal agreement contributions are. It's just stating that this is separate from the fuel tank replacement project interlocal agreement. So again, it doesn't make any changes to this document as far as how the operating agreement will function. It's just clarifying language to make sure there's no ambiguity or misunderstanding about the language in this document being separate from the other interlocal agreement. And then there's also on page, if I can get my page to turn, on page 10 of the document, there's a couple different locations as well. The top paragraph on the top of the page, as well as just language in section D for the notice of withdrawal. And again, it's just clarifying language stating if any of the four entities choose to withdraw from this interlocal agreement, it doesn't have any impact on the fuel tank procurement interlocal agreement that was went into effect earlier this year. So again, just to re-summarize, is that this document is almost exactly the same as the existing interlocal agreement that currently is in use. We just added some clarifying language to those fuel tanks to make sure there was clarification. This is separate from the fuel tank interlocal agreement. I'd just be requesting the commissioners would consider today possibly adopting this agreement.
Okay, I may not have understood a number earlier. Who else has signed the agreement so far?
The City of Kelso passed it last night. Port of Longview passed it last week, and then it's on the City of Longview's agenda for this coming Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on it?
No, I think we understand pretty, yeah. You've made it clear all along the way.
That's good. Yeah, we're definitely ahead of schedule since we technically have till the end of the year to adopt it. But it's just nice to get this done so we can make sure everything's lined up moving into next year. And I just want to say just thank you again to you, the county. I mean, we're giving a tour next week, and it's exciting just to be able to show off all the exciting things been happening over the last several years, and it's definitely not possible unless we had the support of all four entities. So you know, this agreement is definitely a significant part of what's allowed us to make all those changes over the last several years. So it's pretty exciting. So
Are you going to give us details on the open house, or just speak it out loudly so anybody hearing this will?
Open. Oh no, I'm sorry. We have a congresswoman coming on Monday to give and we're giving her a tour of the airport. So I'm excited to be able to share with her what's been going on at the airport for the last several years. So we'll have several people there to participate.
And the times?
It'll be Monday from 3 to 4 p.m.
Did you want to take action on it today or put it on Tuesday agenda?
I'm perfectly happy agreeing that we will sign it now, put it on the consent agenda, but
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm fine. with
we
that.
all good with that?
yeah,
Then I would,
It just continues what we've been doing, basically.
yeah,
Kind of puts us on the commitment for another 5 years of support,
Correct.
which unless we give 6 months notice.
Correct. Yes, there is the withdrawal clause is still in there. Correct.
Kelso doesn't have to wait 6 months though, right? The language is immediately, anytime they want.
They really can't withdraw.
I mean, they own it, yeah.
They own it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
I think,
I guess legally
long
to
as
answer
I-
that, yeah.
as long as I can remember the interlocal agreement setting forth the partners, the system has worked pretty well. We had a couple of rough moments in the first few years with getting the right mix of talent for the the airport manager. And we were fortunate enough to recruit somebody looking to flee Long Beach, California.
yeah.
Yes, indeed. Do you have some more that you'll be presenting?
I'm sorry?
Do you have some more you'll be presenting?
The budget, yeah. The 2024 operating budget, I will also be presenting this afternoon as well.
Do you have some pictorials too?
We can put it up on the screen if you'd like. Otherwise, if you have the packets in front of you, I can go through that as well.
Yeah, on the screen.
we
is
have it,
always good.
yeah.
Yeah.
You want to hear both and then tackle it at that time or?
Your choice, Mr. Chairman.
what?
I think this is quite succinct so far, so let's go ahead.
Okay,
Okay. So then the other items or item in your agenda would be our airport operating budget for 2024. And very similar to the interlocal agreement, we've really, we operate on a pretty tight budget. And so we have everything nailed down pretty good as far as general expenditure items, as far as office supplies and payroll and IT services. So that really doesn't change too much from year to year. So I would like to just point out to you the significant changes for 2024. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions from you. So the first significant change from this year to going into 2024 would be found on line number 13, where it says repairs to landing field. This is normally in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, and you'll see right for next year it's at $190,000. Just to let everybody know, this was actually planned. So what was happening is we have an FAA funded, a grant funded project scheduled for next year for reconstruction of a taxiway and taxi apron area of the airport. It's the worst asphalt on the airfield, as PCI ratings in the teens. So it definitely is in need of replacement. The reason for this dollar amount is because there's a small section of asphalt that comes out of the terminal building that doesn't qualify for that federal funding. So the FAA has certain rules about which asphalt they'll cover. This is considered non-public use ramp space. It's how they define it. And so a majority of the asphalt that's being replaced is being covered under that grant project on a separate line item here. But we had to set aside funding for our own engineering and construction costs for that portion of asphalt. And it's not just a grind and overlay, because the PCI ratings are so low. We're doing a full reconstruction, including base material, changing some grades for better runoff and so forth. So that's the reason for that line item on number 13. That's different from our previous budget years. And then down on line number 27, we had a mower, and this is a tractor purchase. This is the tractor and the large mowing deck. This is the full assembly. This was on our budget for this year. We've held off on making any purchases because we wanted to make sure that we had all of our reserve funds set aside for the fuel tank project in case there was anything, in case we needed to rely on those reserve funds for the fuel tank project. The last bid item for the fuel tank project goes out to bid at the end of this month or between the end of this month and the middle of next month. So that'll be the last item. So that fuel tank project will be locked in. We'll know what our airport reserves will need to be for that project, and we'll be able to move forward. So we're putting it back on our budget item for 2024. I'm still working with the board on a best way to move forward with the mower purchase. There's a lot of different options out there, so we're still researching, but we wanted to put a line item on there to hold the place. So this is not a guaranteed expenditure. We will, as we continue to look at options to either buy used equipment or some lease or lease back options that we've talked back and forth about, and some different procurement options. The airport board will have to approve any expenditure of this dollar amount. This is just more of a placeholder for the airport board to take action next year. And then lines 30 through 34 are federally funded, grant funded projects that are in line, that include projects from this year that'll carry over into next year, as well as the projects for next year. And so all those dollar amounts there are dollar amounts that will be 90% funded by the FAA grants. And their line 34 you'll see as a placeholder for the 2024 FAA runway. EA stands for environmental assessment. We are doing a pre-environmental assessment this year, and based off of the results of that, the FAA may or may not require us to do a full environmental, and this is for the planned 2026 full runway, full reconstruction project that will include runway lighting. So that's why that says placeholder there. And that dollar amount is just a best estimate from the engineers based on prior similar airports of similar size and complexity as far as drainage systems and so forth. And then on the revenue side, you'll see the beginning fund balance on line number 2. Normally this is a $0 amount unless we're pulling from our reserve funds at the airport. And so this is exciting for a couple number of reasons. I just want to point out again, one of the things that's been exciting about this partnership with the 4 entities is it's allowed us to be able to operate the airport year to year, looking forward with some consistency in our funding, and allowed us to actually plan ahead. So as I've talked about in the past, we've done a lot of projects at the airport in-house to try to save costs. And so we started out with $137,000 in our reserve back in the end of 2016. And now we're up at the end of this year, I think we'll be around 800,000 unrestricted, which is pretty exciting because we've been taking very strategic steps to do a lot of those things. And one of the big benefits that allowed us to increase that reserve fund so much is that in 2018 and 19, we got the $1.2 million grant project from the FAA to crack seal and slurry the runway. And because the bids came in back in so low, we were actually able to do both parallel taxiways with that project, which saved us from using funds out of our own bank account essentially to do those repairs ourselves. So that was one of the big funding increases for us. So we've been able to set those funds aside for specifically a mower purchase, the reserves for the fuel tank purchase that's listed there, as well as the money set aside for the FAA projects that are listed in there as well. So that's why you see such a large dollar amount there. It's just a lot of projects are converging on the same year, but we planned for all of those. And then you'll also see under the contributions, you'll see the separate breakdown of the annual contribution under the operating agreement of the $76,000, as well as the $15,000 from each entity for the fuel tank replacement interlocal agreement. So, and then those are the only major changes as far as revenues. All the revenues have been adjusted for the 2024 based on our expected CPI. Some of those numbers will be based on future CPI dates that haven't been published yet. So you make best estimates based on what the CPI numbers you're seeing. But this is, we've been pretty accurate based on the CPI numbers we've been seeing. So I anticipate it'll be pretty close for next year. So that's our 2024 budget. I'll be happy to answer any questions from you on any of these items.
Questions?
I could always throw out a comment, but I thought maybe you or somebody else would have comments. If not, I'll proceed.
I just noticed, and I must be reading this wrong, but the fuel tank replacement project for expenditures is a couple $100,000 more than the revenue you should list on the other on the other page. Am I missing a?
Can you reference a line item for me? I'm sorry.
So on the expenditure list, that would be line number 35. And on the revenues, it is 25 and 26.
That's partially because we, some of that money is in is in line number 2 on the revenue side. There's 200,000 there. And then
There
the,
you go. Okay.
and part of the confusion for that, and I apologize, is because my budget has to be submitted by August 1st each year. We, some of these funds have already been spent, but we have to account for that in our, so I apologize for that. Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to point out a few things and then ask for a prognosis on when the fuel tank project will be done. But I haven't asked that yet.
Okay.
But it gives you time to think about that. Just to let people know, we've had trouble hiring staff. So has the FAA, and that has impacted you on some occasions.
Yes, it has.
So, and then another comment would be the 15,000 that the county is chipping in, just for whoever might not be familiar, that's to pay for the fuel tank project. And when that is done, then that line item goes away. And that's projected to go away in about 20 years or somewhat fewer.
If it takes the full loan timeframe, it's a 20-year loan, but our hope is that we'll be able to reduce that prepayment process, that timeline.
Yeah, and then for people who may be less familiar with the airport, you've got hangars and you manage those hangars, and your hangar occupancy is always, for all intents and purposes, 100%. So it's while you may not be familiar with the airport, it's out there and it's used. And it would have been useful to see a plot of traffic, because you're trying to quantify that.
I can speak briefly to that. It's been pretty exciting. So with some of the changes we made in 2017 through 2019, especially with the runway rehabilitation, there was a Band-Aid that we put on essentially the crack sealing and slurring and the restriping. But addition to that, we also got an improved what's called an instrument approach procedure at the airport that just allows aircraft to access the airport in inclement weather. But it was an improved one, allowing for worse inclement weather, and aircraft would still have access. Those two items were pretty key in us being able to attract 3 interested parties that were going to take over the FBO building. And we selected one after an interview process. And in 2020, they took over. And as many of you have seen, they've done an amazing job at the terminal. And with them, they also have a full-fledged flight school. And they also, because of the improvements they've made and the change in reputation and the professionalism of their operation, I like sharing this quick story. I had about 3 months after they came on board and weren't even finished with all of their improvements to the facility. I had 2 different charter companies actually call the airport to verify that it was under new management, the terminal and the fueling. And when I confirmed that it was, both of those companies said, "Good to know, we'll start flying there again." So you can see there was a huge transition that took place. And I do have a booklet, and I can maybe email that to the commissioners. The booklet actually, I have a snapshot of it's a publicly accessible website called flightaware.com, and you can actually track year over year aircraft activity. And you can almost pinpoint the month that the flight school, Cascade Air is the name of the company, took over the building and started, because the number of aircraft operations with a flight plan that were coming out of the airport nearly doubled that year. And a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's a fluke, it's a fluke." Well, you know, we're in year number 3 and they're still showing those high numbers and it's staying consistent. So I can get a PDF booklet emailed to you, or we can get that to them, but it's pretty exciting to see the visual improvements of that as well.
And if someone in the public wish to see this, how would they obtain it?
I will be posting it on our website, but I have not done that yet. So they give me maybe until next week, it'll be on our website.
Okay, cool. And then the question?
So the fuel site, it is on track. We did have to, currently what we're doing is called as a preloading, sorry. So our soil at the airport is much of South Kelso area, which is surrounded by 3 rivers. The soil is not the best for construction, so we had to look at several different ways to build out a foundation to actually support the weight of 2 12,000-gallon above ground fuel tanks. Because of the soil, we had to do what's called a preloading. So that's already been completed. The dirt is there, and we're in the process of preloading. We're taking weekly surveys of the elevations. We anticipate that to be a 2 to 3 month process. That's adding up to 2 months to the original 1 month process for what we thought was going to take place. So we still hope to go out to bid on the foundation, which will be a 3-foot thick concrete slab to help account for that soil. So we'll have a 3-foot thick concrete raft to hold those fuel tanks essentially on that soil. So we anticipate that'll go out to bid early next month, and they'll be building hopefully before the end of the year, cure time. And then with the fuel tanks will finish being built probably around February. So we anticipate the fuel tank system will be up and running by late first quarter, early second quarter of 2024, just in time for next year's busy flying season. So.
And the airport makes a little bit off the fuel tanks or off the fuel dispensing.
So we do have a fuel flowage fee built into the FBO contract, the FBO fixed base operator, which is Cascade Air. So a fuel flowage fee built into that contract. But we also, there's also the added benefit when you have fuel at an airport. If you go to an airport that doesn't have fuel, they're a ghost town unless they have some very unique operation going there. So the ability for us to maintain our fuel availability is also a way for us to maintain the health of the airport, which allows us to demand the rent that we do from our terminal building, from our hangars, from our land leases, and so forth. So there's kind of that double angle that you get revenue from having the fuel there. So for the public that may not know, we currently have fuel at the airport. We're just replacing aged equipment that's underground with more environmentally friendly above ground fuel tanks to maintain that fuel availability.
Yeah, as it stands, you check the fuel tanks every day.
Currently every day because of
So when the new tanks are up, that's a $750 a month expense.
goes out the window. Correct. There'll be savings. Correct.
And there was one other question. If somebody flies in and they want to go to eat, how do they handle that now?
So one of the exciting things about our new FBO Cascade Air is we never had a loaner car or a courtesy car. A lot of airports have courtesy cars, and now we actually have one. So now when people fly in, they use it all the time. Either go get something to eat, go golfing, go visit family. So it's pretty nice. It's like I said, it's really a night and day difference the last couple of years what we have going on there. So.
And I forgot on the price of fuel, the price is pretty decent because Cascade Air has a fair amount of volume purchase capability.
Decent is relative because it's aviation fuel, so it's a lot more expensive than auto gas. But yes,
But compared to other airports.
but compared to others, so our biggest competitor is actually Scappoose, because it's so close across the river, and they don't have some of the taxes we have. And so, yes, Cascade Air has made a strategic decision to take back some of that lost revenue opportunity by lowering their rates. So. I don't know where they are right now, but the first year that they were in business, just trying to get the word out, they were the lowest fuel price in the state for a while. Both Chehalis sells fuel fairly cheap because they have so many other revenue sources, and then with Scappoose, and we're right in the middle of those two. So Cascade Air does take extra effort to stay competitive between those two.
So all these questions are just to illustrate it's a live going concern with we're happy to have Chris in charge.
Yeah, I haven't been shy at all about saying I have a lot of support. I think it's a great asset to our community. To me, I view it as infrastructure. It helps bring other stuff in, so.
Chris, how much of a problem has it been working with the city over the overpass that they have proposed over the railroad tracks?
So there, the short answer is it will not be an issue. There were some concerns just with elevations that we had to have rechecked out. In fact, their engineers are actually, as we speak, submitting new, what are called Part 77 requests to the FAA, which is an airspace study for certain things. Worst case scenario, some of the light poles will have to be some of those shorter, like stub light poles, or even some flush ground mounted lights along the sidewalk to account for some of the elevation changes. But we did have a chance to address that, and those are being worked on.
Great. And I am assuming that when there are wildfires in the vicinity, Kelso Airport is a staging ground for the helicopters that assist in the firefighters.
Correct. So that's actually almost unfortunately good for the airport, unfortunate for the community. Every single year we host fire helicopters. Last year we had 2 Type 1 helicopters. That just means they're really large. We had a Super Puma and I forget what the other one was, but they were based here for several weeks. This year with the fire we had across the river that was sudden and unexpected, we had for all intents and purposes, a civilian version of the Chinook helicopter that was operating for several days to help with that fire as well. So, and there's actually, I have some pictures of that in a booklet that I'll email the commissioners for that. But yes, every year the airport is a staging ground for that. Was it last year or 2 years ago? We also had a military doing a search and rescue operation. We were the base of operations for that, which was a 24/7 operation for about 2.5 days. So absolutely. And then kind of a unique little story we don't see it happen very often here, but because of the Oregon Way Bridge closure, we actually had a company that was based in Oregon, but most of its employees are actually in McCallets County. So they actually they looked at all different transportation options to try to get their employees to work, and they came up with doing a short-term lease directly from the airport. So we had a revenue opportunity there. They had 2 helicopters operating, and they had about 90 employees that were being shipped on 3 different shifts each day for about a week. So around midnight, around 7 a.m. around 7 a.m. and again, like sometime at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, about 30 employees at a time were being taken back and forth across the river by 2 helicopters on I think they're like 12.5-minute round trip flights. And they would just go for 2 hours at a time, 3 times a day for that week. So
That's why that week was so noisy.
and when you actually look in the booklet, you'll actually see a spike in the aircraft operations for that week. It's such a large spike, you'll know that there's something happened. They actually put a note on there explaining that it was the helicopter operations. But yeah, so it's just, we definitely support the economy in many different ways that sometimes we don't even think about.
Thank you.
Okay, we actually have 2 requests for us. One, approve the interlocal agreement, one, the budget.
Yeah, the budget typically works. We don't get to approve it directly. The board approves it. Well, we have to approve it directly?
Correct. Yes.
Oh, it's got to be approved by us first. I mean, us. It needs 2 approvals. And is there an order preferred there?
In this particular case, that you can approve either one first. It'd be probably logically if you approve the ILA first, so that way you're committing to the next year and then approve the airport budget. But yeah, all 4 entities do take action on the budget.
So I'm with your acceptance, I'll move to approve the budget.
And that the ILA needs to be approved too.
Can you pardon?
This is a budget for next year, so we need to approve the ILA first. Because we don't have an entity otherwise to fund.
I thought, we approved it, but not officially.
Right.
Yeah, right,
Okay.
right. So you just amended your motion.
Let me amend my motion to approve both documents in the order of the ILA first and 2024 budget.
Perfect. I don't even know if we have anybody online? I don't know. Yeah, we do. Better check for hands real quick. I see none. See no questions. Call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also approve. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you both for.
It's a little trickier than that, isn't it? Officially speaking, we approve the amendment. Now we have to vote on the motion itself with the amendment in it.
Unless we don't challenge the chairman's.
The chairman is
procedures.
correct.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you for your continued support. Thank you.
Besides, Kelly will work it out for us.
Thank you for all you do out there. Sure. I hear you have something for us, Brian. Okay,
So I'd like to update you guys today on both the hotel and the master plan that's going to happen.
Thank you.
This is just really preliminary, but it's kind of nice to kind of see what's going on. So first I'll talk about.
Ryan, although we know who you are, the public doesn't yet.
the light must not be on. Is it on?
How about there?
There you go.
My name is Brian Magnuson. I reside at 274 Barlow Point Road, and I was here today to discuss or to update the three of you about the hotel at the conference center, and then the second about our master plan progress. So I feel like that it's important that the three of you know everything that's going on. So that's why I thought I'd do this. The hotel, what was going on there is the developer needed to approve the conditions that had to be met. And so he did. So what that means is the purchase and sale agreement is now in play, and that will close. If everything goes right, it will close on March of next year, 2024. So by approving all those conditions, the thing that has to happen now is they will work with the city in the building and planning portion of it. And they have an architect. It's, as you know, it's the Hampton. Not much has changed. I'm an optimist, so I always believe, but like I say, that I'll be excited to see actually concrete. So what else would I tell you about that?
So Brian, the hotel proposal, is that a 40 room, 60, 180?
I'm sorry, it's 88 rooms,
88?
88, and it's 4 stories, and they're proposing a rooftop bar as well. So, and maybe even a covered walkway between the conference center, the rain aspect of it. But it's pretty exciting. And then it ties right into what's going on with the master plan as well. And we've had 2 or 3 different meetings with them, so I'm feeling pretty comfortable. But again, until you see concrete. So I'm not trying to become overly.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard for me to hear, and I know March 31 is a date, but I didn't understand what is the tie-up between now and then.
Yeah, so they had to accept their, so the conditions, so they apply, because they had the due diligence piece of it, and then they got 2 extensions for that. And so they approved that. So they had put $25,000 in escrow. So if they backed out now, after they've approved it, they would lose that money. So that's I would guess they are pretty serious about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Then the time frame from here until March is just what they're estimating it'll take them to work with the city and get through all that process.
Right. They want to break ground. And remember, our agreement is that if it's not occupied, if you don't have a occupancy inspection and it's in 2026, the land would go back to you. That's kind of the agreement.
The original agreement was extended then, right?
Correct. To 2026. It was 2024 originally. The other thing.
So they have to have occupancy by 2026?
Correct.
in the middle of the year?
There's a date and I forget what it is. I kind of thought it was somewhere like in March or something. It coincides with something I remember, but not, and the three of you, like, if they were underway, under construction, the three of you have the authority to be able to extend that, if need be, but I'm not worried about that, really.
And again, just for review, the main reason we were going forward with a hotel option was to enable the event center to actually facilitate multi-day conferences, which they hadn't been able to do very successfully just because of the lack of adequate hotel rooms.
Right. Well, a good example of that was, and I believe it was Labor and Industries, but I forget. It was a state of Washington. They had the conference. They've been working with them for about a month, and they decided that the agenda was going to be a one-day meeting, and they decided that the agenda was so rigorous they had to do 2 days. And when they did that and found out there wasn't a hotel attached, they moved it to Clark County. So that's the kind of thing we run up against. Yeah.
And the hotel will have extra meeting rooms also?
Yeah, we haven't got that far yet.
Okay,
But they
that was
could.
originally a thought, right?
Right, it was originally having maybe a couple more breakout rooms, we call them.
Yeah, or even a small salon of some kind.
Yeah. The other thing that came, so one of the things that we have in, and this is going to be something I'm going to ask maybe your help on here in the next couple months, will be, so the 2 kiosks that we have there, I call them kiosks, those 2 little small buildings that are just east, and they have been used for the fair. During the fair, they have food vendors in there. There's only 2 left that use that. Those are going to have to be torn down, 2 of the 3 of them. And originally, that was supposed to be done at closing by the PDA. I thought about that some, and so I have an amendment before them. And what I want to amend it is that we will tear them down 5 days after the start of their construction. And the reason I thought that would be important is because I wouldn't want to have the optics of getting in there too excited and take those buildings out and then have something go sideways. So I'd rather wait and see their bulldozers in there, and then we'll move quickly and take those 2 buildings. The other thing I would say is that on our 5th approach, 5th Avenue approach, we have 1 building there that's got to come out for sure. I believe it's the dog building, the building that, it might be Arts, I can't remember. So, and then also the ground there where the WSU garden is. And Kim tells me that she's already spoken with them. So as far as the garden goes, and then I'd also talked to Commissioner Dahl about, there's quite a bit of staging area that's to the east there. That's quite a bit of material, it's nearly like a boneyard, as you will. And it would be nice to
Kind of across the alley here, what is it, 3rd Avenue from
It's actually-
Morgan?
Yeah, it's actually on the same side of the road. It's just a lot of stuff, things that get kind of put there. It's kind of the graveyard, as you will, of things.
Yeah. I talked to Mike and Savannah about that, and they can find another home for some of that stuff when need be.
Yeah, Kim said some of that was hers too, for like fencing or something, but. So that's, any questions? Hotel wise?
So again, I wasn't clear. You're saying that you will need, that the construction, during construction, there will need some staging area, places to put their equipment, or while construction is in.
No, I was just thinking that as you build a brand new hotel, it would be nice from an aesthetics perspective to have that area cleaned up and looking nice.
we store over there and it's not really aesthetic looking. And with the new hotel in, Mike and Savannah thought they could find a different place for that, so people don't have to stare at it.
Yeah, so that's really after construction.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I just want to make sure if Devin, who is the developer, asked me what's going to happen, I could say to him that that's going to be taken care of. So,
Yeah, the same way during construction, I wouldn't want them to interfere with the business of the events center.
yeah.
So, Rick, have you looked into that? Do we have a place to move that stuff? I think we do, but
They, I can't recall, they talked about a couple places and I can't recall right off the top of my head, but they felt that it wouldn't be a huge deal.
So at the same time this has been going on, I know that we asked Kim to put together plans for an RV park, which is now a very informal 1 week event during fair, but it sounds like there may be some overlap in construction if that happens.
Well, part of this master plan is to really help us, understand what's the best utilization for that 47 acres. And so we've all thought that it would be the Peardale entrance for that RV. And I haven't talked to Kim about it this month as to whether she didn't know exactly how many sites it could support in that one area. But that's pretty exciting as well. So there's kind of a three-legged stool going on here. We have that, which is planned, and then as well as this master plan and what gets developed from that. The master plan is pretty exciting. This is just a preliminary snapshot of what they've collected so far. They've had about 240 interviews of folks, stakeholders in our community. And I've asked them to leave it open 2 more weeks. And I got involved with Kirk Rowland we're going to start running radio ads in the morning starting on tomorrow to encourage people to take part in that survey and to help people understand what's happening over there. We want ownership. We want people to understand that this could be a pretty exciting addition to our community. How the master plan is laid out or how they've been approaching it's pretty exciting. They go and they look at other like communities that have a base like we have, and they gather a lot of information about. So for instance, if it's a field or if it's a building, they find how many people a year use it, what percentage of those people come from out of town, how many, what the likelihood of the people are to reuse it. There's just quite a bit of statistics, and they're going to continue gathering that as well as more stakeholder interviews. But probably in October, we'll have the final report. And I can't tell you exactly what will come of it necessarily, but the couple things I made clear to Johnson, which was it needed to be sustainable. So whatever it is, we can work out the capital, but the sustainability on a year-over-year basis has to be able to do that. And it has to be able to bring people in from out of town, heads and beds. That's my criteria anyway. I feel like I've been pretty committed to that over the years.
Have you determined the location of the helicopter pad? On behalf
That would
of
be
Chris.
Chris's job. Which, by the way, that airport's awesome. I've been a pilot since I was 20 years old. And it's exciting to see growth at that airport. And I know Chris does a great job. I don't mean to blow his horn a bit.
Yeah. Anything else, gentlemen? Thank you for coming by and
Yeah.
updating us.
Are you going to make the meeting today, you think?
I may be a little late, but I'm gonna head over that way when I'm finished here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and again, I really appreciate the support you guys have given us, and I'd really like to someday, just as I look back 20-some years ago, what it used to look like before we started on that corner. Maybe if I get another 10 or 15 years of life, that I could look back and see something pretty interesting there. It would be neat to, it'd be just, I don't know, it'd just be really rewarding for me. I've worked pretty hard on this, so.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to me.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
Any other from the audience? Give you one update before we go into executive session. You asked me, we talked a little bit about the Humane Society contract, not taking out the animal control. So I talked with Sheriff Thurman, and I think we're pretty much on the same page. He's figuring, the sheriff's gonna have to take some of that over, and the goal is that we don't want to spend more than what we currently do now. Hopefully what we do can kind of offset some of the savings. I don't know if we'll get there, but that's the goal. The other piece is the contract for taking sheltering animals in will be like $300 a day, whether the animal is in there 1 day or 6 months or 2 years. It's when that fur animal first comes in, it's a $300 charge. And Sheriff Thurman and I talked a little bit about because we do have some excess capacity in our building areas, that maybe we can, for animals they pick up that are chipped and stuff that they think can be turned around real quick, that we have a facility for short term versus paying the $300 to take it over to the Humane Society. So that's another thing we're looking at.
I'm unclear. That's $300 per day or just,
$300 just for bringing it in.
and then
It
there's
doesn't
a
matter
daily
where it
charge?
stays 1 day or it stays 2 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and you're hoping that whatever we were paying that we currently pay, we would not exceed that.
That's what we're hoping. That's the goal.
Yeah,
We'll see if we can get there.
I've never been comfortable that I really understood how much we should be paying. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you're looking into that.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of thing where I think uniformly lots of people would support making sure that animals are adequately taken care of.
Right.
Is there a collaboration with the cities then too? Because they
Yeah.
contribute a lot to it. So.
Yeah. In fact, I was out at Castle Rock Council on Monday and we chatted a little bit about it, Chief Worley and Brad and the chiefs from the cities have been talking and trying to formulate this plan. And so we kind of had a discussion actually Monday out there with Castle Rock Council and just told them what.
So the idea would be a single animal control facility? Is that owned and operated by the county, and then the cities would kick in to the operation, or is it a different?
Yeah,
model?
it would be, but it'd only be a facility for, the way it was presented to me, and I think that's probably, if we picked up an animal, and we knew it had a chip and something, and an animal we felt could turn real quick, instead of getting charged the $300 for bringing it in there, if we felt we could turn it, we had a temporary facility. I don't think we're looking at any animals staying there for even a month.
Okay.
And get it back to the owner saves everybody that $300.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a pretty big issue. What is it that we're gonna do if a neighbor complains about barking dogs and there's enough of that, then the sheriff has to go out there and grab the dog and put the dog someplace, I guess. But we also had, you remember the lady with the cows?
The neglect, there's
Yeah.
always the neglect problem.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, let me call it infrastructure that I don't know that it was handled adequately under the current contract.
Yeah,
But it would seem like if we're starting, there's some expertise there that I don't understand,
If-
but
if
I
I-
know it's absent.
If I remember correctly, the larger animals ended up at the fairgrounds, because that's where the stables are. I think.
That could
Was
be,
for a short term
At our
at
fairgrounds.
our
Yeah.
fairgrounds.
Yeah, and then there's the tab for the feed and the vet.
yeah. So our initial, he'll be doing a lot more work on that and then bring a presentation. He basically wanted to know that the commissioners were willing to work or wanted to, what they wanted to work on. And so we both had the same ground rule. Well, the number one, we want to try and keep the cost the same.
See, that's the thing I'm challenging. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we can save anything. We might even have to.
Yeah, I'll be real honest with you, keeping it even the same is a big challenge, but I think it's a worthwhile goal
Yep.
to shoot for. So that, in real nutshell, that was the gist of that conversation.
Cool.
Any other miscellaneous?
I did attend the 911 board
Wait,
meeting.
just a second on that, please, I'm sorry. Are you thinking, you're thinking about somehow the county via the sheriff might be operating another facility, and that might be a farm that we take
Well,
over? Anything?
There was two places we talked about. He talked about a building out by the airport that they've utilized, that maybe you could put a run or two in.
If you
And-
if you use the goats, we won't have to spend 180K on the mower.
Well, there you go. And then we could just tie them out there. And then we talked about, well, we also have that abandoned building out by the landfill,
Oh, Mount Solo?
Tenant Way.
Tenant
Way
Way.
landfill.
Yeah.
Tenant Way, I meant, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
remember, that's slated for the railroad.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it is. So it'd be a temporary thing, but we do have some capacity that he was aware of, that if we choose, if in the plan, we chose to try and tackle those, what we thought were short term, that we may have the facilities to do that.
So he is heading up the solution?
He is.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dennis, appreciate it.
So I did attend the 911 board meeting today. And they were brimming with good news, although they are about a year and a half late
Yeah.
getting moved in. They did say that their expectation was to be out of the Hall of Justice by the end of September. They've essentially moved their operations over. There's a matter of equipment being shifted back and forth and cleaning out. They're also settling up the claims with various contractors, subcontractors, and as they finish up on it. But probably the good news is that they still expect to come in under budget, which is almost unheard of in a government operation. So the whole project of build and shift was estimated at about $15 million. They're going to come in under that.
Okay, the last number I remember was 13.3.
13%.
So it depends on which budget.
Yeah, it depends.
But also just to caution, 911 needs a backup facility.
Mhm.
And currently that's on this floor, but I don't think we've ever seen it used, right? So by engineering principles, it doesn't work. And currently, I think they're viewing the HOJ as their backup facility.
Yeah, I think that's
Right.
some kind of temporary thing, but
And then they probably need to worry about a backup link to the internet. I think they're on a single, somebody cuts the cable, the connectivity is gone. So I'm saying there's
he
always a lot to
also,
take care of when you have a redundant system.
John Diamond, who's the executive director, also mentioned the incredible change in the culture amongst the workers, that they've been freed from the dungeon, is how they put it.
They can actually see outside.
Can see
Well,
outside,
they
yes.
all come in with these dark sunglasses.
Now, they do have a tough enough job, to put them in a
Well.
dungeon, just wasn't the best.
I almost have to second that. When I got the tour and I was over at the Hall of Justice and walking through there, I'm going, I don't think I could do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things is that the original dispatch center was on the second, the main floor of the Hall of Justice, back behind where Law Enforcement Records was. And when Trojan was made operational, Portland General Electric paid to move them to the dungeon behind concrete walls, but you know, protecting from any kind of fallout that might occur. Unfortunately, they didn't put that and set it aside for when they moved to the next location, so that company didn't have to pay for that, so.
That'd be an interesting analysis because radiation from the fallout there would take quite a while to tackle anybody here. And then you'd have to figure out that you're going to get someone who will stay in the dungeon and then go home at night through a storm. I'm just saying that
Yep.
didn't sound like it was very well thought out.
It was also the time when they built the sirens all over town, which I think were tested once or twice and they've never been used, so. They overplanned it.
Okay. I don't see any other from the public. All good? Okay, we'll go into executive session. We have it for data security. I'm gonna start at 30 minutes. Okay, we'll do that.
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 30 minutes until 3:28.
Okay, we found out executive session, no decisions were made. Any other miscellaneous before we adjourn? Yep.
Little quick discussion for Rick. You notice that we get the mailings from the cannabis and the liquor board. And the statement is something about if you object, go ahead and try and object.
They're not gonna listen, right?
It's quite perfunctory. The only use I get out of it is advisory of sorts, you know, and I recognize it. Is that your impression also, Dennis?
The appeal only works if the appeal is information that that facility is selling to criminals.
Right, or minors or.
That's what the hearing is. And the sheriff is the one that should be making the recommendations on yea or nay,
Yeah.
because they would know who the criminal elements are. Although I think I heard something from Wasack that one of the new laws did add zoning, local zoning to the criteria that they would investigate, which I thought, ooh, somebody actually listened to us because we've been
Oh,
fighting that.
I think that's true, because I think I was up there when they
So
were
that,
talking about that.
so that, especially for the cannabis sales, the liquor sales, I think those are all pretty well zoned
Yeah.
correctly, but the cannabis sales are the ones that tend to routinely. They get a state license and think it's a get out of jail free card. They don't have to follow any of the rules.
Interesting, isn't it? The unintended
So
consequences.
what we might do is make sure that the folks who check zoning requirements respond to those emails instead of it just staying in our office. I think a copy goes to the sheriff. That's pretty standard, but I don't think they look at it downstairs in building planning. And they're the ones that would tell us, hey, these people have never complied.
You know how the clerk puts all of the correspondence we get, it goes on the consent agenda and that hence is available for the public. Should these letters be there also?
Well, they could. That wouldn't necessarily get the answers from building and planning though, unless we direct them to.
No, but it is public information.
Yeah. When I was the city council, they were always on the consent agenda.
Did you want to think about that, if you would do that or not? I'm not sure anybody really cares.
Yeah, I'm welcome to any kind of feedback if that's something that you
Yeah.
feel should be on there. It was just a learning process.
Sure.
Okay. That'll lead to a lot of questions too. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I was just gonna say, you might have lengthened our meetings.
And then there is you attended a Law and Justice Council? Oops, okay, it turns out, at least according to the computer, and computer's never wrong, Dennis is number one and you're back up on Law and Justice Council.
I think that's true.
Yeah, that's what the computer says, right?
Yeah. I know Dennis set in for me today, 911, which I appreciate. Yeah.
That's all I had, I guess.
Okay.
I need a drink.
Okay. We will
Thank you.
adjourn. Thank you.